You're standing around a campfire. The year is 50,000 BC. The sun just went down. There is no Netflix, there are no smartphones, and zero anxiety about your unread inbox. There's just you, the roaring flames, and a thick cloud of choking smoke. But right here, in the dark, one ancestor looked at that smoke and thought, wait, what if I did that on purpose? Welcome to the real origin of smoking. Forget modern cigarettes, forget luxury cigars, and forget the guy smoking outside your office.
We're talking about the very first intentional inhalation, one of the oldest, deepest habits of our species. And here is the crazy part. It didn't actually start with tobacco, or global colonial trade routes, or even early human agriculture. The urge to inhale smoke is hardwired into us. It predates human civilization entirely, and the actual evidence is wild. Let's talk about fire first, because without fire, you can't smoke, and fire goes back a long, long way.
The earliest proof of controlled fire dates back roughly 1 million years. Discovered at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found burnt plant ash and bone. This wasn't a random wildfire. It was a deliberate, sustained campfire inside a cave. 1 million years ago, modern humans didn't exist. This was the era of Homo erectus. Smaller brains, heavy brows, and zero interest in rules. They sat around fires just like we do. They used it to cook food. They used it to stay warm.
They huddled tightly in the shadows, and they breathed smoke every single day. This went on for hundreds of thousands of years. Smoke inhalation was a daily reality. It was completely unavoidable. It was constant, the ultimate primitive air quality situation, and obviously no app to check it. But then things got very interesting. Because some of that smoke wasn't just wood. Burning plants releases a massive cocktail of compounds, and depending on the plant, things change. Certain wild bushes release heavy psychoactive chemicals, alkaloids and terpenes that hit the human nervous system in ways that are, let's say, noticeable. Meaning our ancestors were accidentally getting high, sitting by the fire, feeling absolutely amazing. And this isn't just some wild theory. Anthropologists believe early humans in forested areas were exposed to this constantly. Join us at Loremind. Hit subscribe. They were breathing burning cannabis and wild nicotiana, naturally growing entheogens across Africa and Asia. Guess what? The human brain has built-in cannabinoid receptors. They didn't evolve just because of a plant. It's our endocannabinoid system, regulating mood and appetite. So when a human first inhaled that specific smoke, their brain wasn't confused at all. It was like, oh, hello, I've been waiting. That first accidental hit around a prehistoric fire is the true unfiltered origin of smoking. No plan, no grand design, just a pleasant accident, repeated until someone decided to do it on purpose. Just think about that for a second. The entire multi-trillion-dollar global tobacco industry, centuries of ritual, shamanism, and old medicine, all started because a hunter sat downwind of the wrong bush and had an unexpectedly fantastic evening. History is beautiful in the most absurd ways, but we have to be careful about timelines here. Accidentally breathing smoke is one thing, intentionally cultivating it to smoke is completely different. So what does the hard archaeology actually say? The oldest physical proof of intentional cannabis use, meaning deliberately burned seeds inside a ritual context, comes from the Pamir Mountains around 500 BC. Excavators found wooden bowls with superheated stones and residue of cannabis with unusually high THC. This wasn't wild hemp used for making ropes. This was strictly the premium stuff, left directly inside a high-status burial. That's roughly 500 BC, 2,500 years ago. But here is the question you should be asking. Does no older physical evidence mean it didn't happen? Or does it just mean we haven't dug it up yet? Organic material like leaves and seeds rarely survives underground. We find ancient stone tools because stone lasts forever.
But a wooden pipe filled with dry herbs, it turns to dust in a couple of centuries. So a lack of older evidence proves absolutely nothing. Then there is the Herodotus problem. The famous ancient Greek historian, writing in 500 BC, he documented a nomadic tribe called the Scythians and their strange habit of taking vapor baths. They heated stones until they glowed bright red, threw hemp seeds directly onto them inside a tiny tent, and sat in the thick smoke, howling with absolute pleasure. Historians thought Herodotus was just exaggerating until archaeologists started digging up Scythian burial mounds
and found the exact bronze bowls, stones, and hemp residue. The man wasn't lying. He was just reporting the facts. Honestly, he was probably underselling it. Now, let's pivot to tobacco, because that's what most people think of first. Tobacco is a plant genus native only to the Americas. This detail is extremely important. It means the Old World, Europe, Africa, and Asia, knew nothing about it until Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean in 1492.
When the Europeans hit the Caribbean beaches, they saw the locals doing something bizarre. Columbus wrote about people carrying glowing sticks, breathing in the smoke of burning dried leaves, and blowing it out of their noses and mouths. His crew was completely baffled, but within weeks, they were trying it themselves. But tobacco use in the Americas goes way deeper. Ancient pipes loaded with specific chemical residue prove humans were smoking in the US over 3,500 years ago.
And it likely ties back 10,000 years to early Amazonian farming. But here is the massive difference. Ancient American smoking wasn't recreational, not a casual habit. It was strictly sacred, used purely for healing rituals and spirits, and binding powerful agreements between tribes. Blowing smoke on someone was a deep sign of respect. A shaman wasn't just taking a smoke break, he was opening a direct channel to the divine. The smoke itself was a living messenger, carrying prayers up and bringing visions down.
That framing matters deeply. It's why the practice was so highly controlled and respected across indigenous cultures for millennia. You treat sacred things with reverence. You don't chain smoke while watching television. The idea of casual, everyday tobacco use, a quick smoke while waiting for the bus, that's almost entirely a recent European invention.
Now, let's go back even further to a piece of history most people have never heard. The absolute oldest evidence of smoking on record, found in the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah. A primitive stone hearth, roughly 12,000 years old, packed tightly with ancient wild tobacco seeds. These seeds didn't just blow in by accident. They were deliberately concentrated in the fire, long before any pottery or pipes existed. This discovery completely rewrote our history, and it leaves us with an incredible question. If Americans were burning tobacco 12,000 years ago, breathing it in around the campfire, what were people in Europe or Asia doing? Because humans were everywhere at that time, spread across every single continent, and the desire to alter human consciousness isn't regional. It's a universal biological drive. Enter the intoxication hypothesis. Respected anthropologists take this very seriously. Every human culture in history sought altered states. Fermented drinks, wild mushrooms, toxic roots, chewing leaves, swallowing seeds, inhaling smoke. It is so independent across human history that scientists believe it is hardwired biology. UCLA psychopharmacologist Ronald Siegel proved it. The pursuit of intoxication is a fundamentally fourth drive, right alongside hunger, thirst, and sex. And it's embedded in animal behavior too. Elephants get drunk on fermented marula fruit on purpose. Reindeer in Siberia deliberately eat toxic mushrooms and follow each other around to recycle the chemicals. Yes, animal drug recycling is a real thing. Honestly, you have to respect the hustle. But beyond ritual and fun, there was medicine. If an ancient human had a brutal lung infection, there were no pills, no modern inhalers. You used smoke to deliver active ingredients fast. Ancient Egyptian papyri describe burning herbs and inhaling the smoke through hollow reed straws.
But ancient India took it to a whole new level. In Ayurveda, it's called Dhumapana, literal smoking, but zero recreation here. This was highly controlled clinical therapy. Pastes of turmeric, saffron, and neem wrapped on sticks, dried in the sun, and then ignited. Patients inhaled the smoke through the nose or mouth to clear sinuses, kill bacteria, and balance doshas. Smoke was a direct physical carrier for healing, depositing herbal medicine directly into deep tissue. So when you look at today's multi-billion-dollar industries, the regulatory battles and vapes on every corner, remember where it all actually started.
Not in a modern corporate boardroom. It started in the absolute dark, with an accidental breath around a primitive fire. A tired hunter looking up at a sky full of stars, feeling a sudden, profound shift in his mind and realizing the world was full of secrets. We've been chasing that smoke ever since. For more ancient secrets, subscribe to Lore Mind. Thanks for watching. See you in the next chapter.